Hi, my beautiful people. I'm Estrella Carter, Realtor and Certified Homestager, also known as the House Lady, helping you live your best life through real estate and smart decisions. If you would like to be on my show and talk about how you or your organization make an impact in the community, give me a call at 651 338 4207. On this podcast, we discuss real estate, lifestyle, and community. And today's conversation is about access, opportunity, and building real wealth in our communities. And today I am so excited to have our guests on to discuss their organization that makes a real impact in the community. And we will go ahead and let them introduce themselves. Thank you so much for listening. Hi.
Hey.
Well,
Hey guys.
Thank you for being here today. And I've heard throughout the years about your organization as a realtor, but I'm just so excited for us to finally meet you both and the founder, so you can tell us a little bit more about your organization today. And hopefully our listeners will, refer people to your organization after hearing about the wonderful things you do. So if we can start off with you introducing yourself, telling us your role, and then just giving us a little personal background.
Okay. My name is David McGee, and I'm the executive director and founder of Build Wealth Minnesota. And we started, we're just getting ready to move into our 22nd year of doing this work. I come from a long background from being in the mortgage industry for about 39 years. Primarily as an underwriter in the industry for a long time, and training underwriters that are now underwriting around the country is what we do. But we started Build Wealth Minnesota, and I have my senior program director here. You'll meet in a minute. But we have been training underwriters and training a lot of folks in the mortgage industry in general, processors, underwriters, and other positions in the mortgage industry. The goal was to try to get more people of color in the industry. And Build Wealth Minnesota is just doing just that. We've been helping people build sustainable social and economic wealth so that families, we like to get people into home ownership, but that's not our primary thing, is to really get people educated on how to navigate through systems in the banking industry in different places. But the goal is to have them be homeowners, not buy houses, but buy homes in a sense, and be able to stay in the homes and build equity and build generational wealth for their families. And so we have a very intensive financial education and social education program that goes for about 10 weeks. So folks come in our program, they go through that first. They're armed with a coach that works with them and helps them learn every aspect of that process.
Okay, so we'll learn more about that later.
Yep.
But thank you so much. I'm going to give you an applause for that because that's a lot. You're seasoned. So with that, where's my applause? That's not my applause. Okay, well, just bear with me. I thought I had my applause together. Here it is. See? You guys hear that? All right, now I got it. Okay. Now, your turn. Go ahead.
My name is Jeffrey Robinson. I'm Senior Program Director at Build Wealth Minnesota, and I was actually one of the underwriters that Dave had trained, and I would say that I was the best one. I trained and underwrote all over this country. Spent like 3 years in Puerto Rico, as well as 5 to 6 months in Barcelona, Spain, underwriting mortgages and reviewing mortgage-backed securities for Wall Street investors. I come by way of small-town boy, born in Mississippi and raised in Chicago, and I've been here in Minnesota since 1996, and this is the place I've been calling my home for the last 30 years now.
Oh, yeah, so you're Minnesotan. So, ¿tú hablas español? Since you said you're in Puerto Rico and Barcelona.
Muy poquito.
Yo también, but we have on my team, I have a fluent Spanish speaker here. So if you need someone that's fluent. So,
Great.
All right, well, thank you. I'm going to give you an applause as well.
I know enough to order a drink.
That's all you need, my brother.
So, who do you primarily serve? You kind of told us a little bit. If you want to talk more about your mission and then who you primarily serve.
Yeah, our mission is to, like I said, help families build sustainable social and economic wealth. And when I started it, it was really my goal to try to help more Black people get into home ownership and be educated. And I'm a spiritual guy too, and I heard the Lord told me I'm going to serve all nations, and I'm like, I'm not going to be going all over the world doing this. Next thing I knew, there were people from all over the world taking my class.
Wow.
Russia, Romania, Spain,
That's a testament.
India. So people have been in our program from all over the world. So when we first started, we were probably 30 to 40% of the folks we were serving were Caucasian. But at this stage, African American is still we're housed in North Minneapolis, right on Plymouth and Penn, right in the heart of the community. We were down the street on University at 1821 University in the Griggs Midway building, and half of our folks were coming from North Minneapolis. So we serve all people. I don't want to be pegged as we only serve one type of people, but we serve all people. But African Americans are folks that the primary target of folks that we serve. When we're serving people right out of high school, we now do a youth program. So we're actually doing folks in middle school all the way to 80, I think, that we're serving right now. And we've been very consistent. We've had classes that have been going on. There's always a waiting list. We've always had a waiting list for our classes. Right now, there's 3 different classes going on right now. We'll talk about that a little later about that class, but that's what we do. And the game plan, my wife tells me don't tell people that, but if you're here just for home ownership, you're in the wrong place.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah.
You're here. We want you well-rounded and able to navigate through all the things of all the different financial systems that there are. And when you're doing that, when you do get your home, you keep that home, and that home now becomes, a major investment in multi-generational wealth.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
We've got a lot of multi-generations. I'll let Jeff talk about that.
Yeah, so when I think about Build Wealth Minnesota and the financial education that Mr. McGee had put together, that he had been entrusted with, and to sharing it and distributing it throughout the community, the thing I think about is like having a formula specifically for how to put together a foundation for building generational wealth. And a lot of times when we think about, generational wealth, the first thing that comes to mind is assets, but financial assets, a house, money, insurance, cars, jewelry. But there's one asset that's greater than all of those assets. That's knowledge. Because you can pass down money, but if you don't pass down the knowledge necessary to manage that money, then you're saving it up for a generation that's not going to know what to do with it. And you might as well have spent 80% of it before you passed, because in less than a year to 2 years, it never fails. It never fails. A person that doesn't know how to manage money, who instantly comes into money, they typically lose it in a very, very short period of time. And so when you think about financial education and you think about our curriculum, which isn't just financial education, but it's also, because there's 2 forms of wealth. There's financial wealth and there's social wealth. And without that social component to a financial education curriculum, you're missing out on the other half of the story. Because the other half is, if you think money is the only thing that makes you wealthy, then you already lost. Because it's easy to chase money. But chasing money will lead you away from your family. It will lead you away from your passion. It'll lead you away from your religion. It'll lead you away from your friends, your loved ones, and all those things that you care most about. And so when you think about build wealth and the family stabilization plan that Mr. McGee had put together, I've been teaching this curriculum at under his tutelage since 2000 and maybe 15, 14. And every year, I lie to you not, I'm learning something new and I'm adding something more to the thing or the plan that I had created. And so the family stabilization plan and helping families put together a strategy for building long lasting generational wealth, it's a necessity.
Absolutely.
It's not an option. The house comes later,
Right.
but let's get the thing that's going to help us keep it, which is what David was saying.
Yes. And Jeffrey, that's very powerful because when you said knowledge, that is human capital.
Hmm.
And that is something that no one can take away from you.
Correct.
And so that's powerful because we need that as a community. We need knowledge because sometimes, and historically knowledge has been restricted from our communities as well. So thank you so much for that as well. So.
And for everyone listening too, I mean, the one thing about knowledge is you have to ask the questions. If you don't ask the questions, you're never going to get to knowledge. So just a little word of advice out there. Never be afraid to ask questions, even if they're uncomfortable. So
Absolutely. So what makes Build Wealth Minnesota different and unique from other organizations that are doing similar work?
I think the social wealth piece is really critical. But we have a team of coaches, and most of our coaches have been through a lot of the challenges of life. So they're able to really work with people and be brutally honest. And then a lot of our stuff is culturally specific. I said earlier in the show, we serve all people, but there's a real component in there about what Black people and underserved communities have had to go through. We lead with that. Come to find out, we're not so different than all the communities a lot of times when it comes to finances.
Right.
Because a lot of times we don't teach that in school. And a lot of families, you find that our parents, when it came to finances and being broke and going through challenges, that's grown folks' business. And you don't get to get involved in those communications that are critical to survival. They didn't even know. My dad didn't even know. My dad was an accountant, but because he was Black, he didn't get the opportunity to be an accountant for a bank or anything. So there's opportunities that he lost
Yes.
in terms of actually operating in his gifting and sharing that gifting with us and other members of his community. And so I think that social piece is so critical of being able to really talk about relationships, because at the end of the day, we start out with the wealth is our, when we got this triangle we use for, most of our community are believers. God is first, then man, and then, man, his wife, and then his children. A lot of that whole, we call it the formula, has been lost. A lot of people think it's okay not to be married.
Right.
We don't need to be married. We don't need to have a dad in the household. And in a lot of these underserved communities, systems were set up to get the dad out of
Yes.
the family. All of that wealth we've lost. So we start by rebuilding that formula as the foundation of where we build our wealth is through relationships. And there's still some communities that are here, Hmong communities and others, when they came over here, they still have, a unified front. Their money is, unified together. We stack our money and then we buy stuff. That is almost unheard of in some of our communities once that original relationship has been destroyed. We're trying to restore that and let people reprioritize what's important
Yeah, like strengthening the family unit.
first. And if that's broken, and I don't care how much money I got, if I don't really have a wife, my kids are over there, some of them are over there. I had a broken family. I got 3 children from this relationship, 3 from there. Those are 2 different households I had to support, and if I didn't support them both effectively,
So it sounds like your program has a holistic approach.
it does. It does, and it's all. And we say family, and all of us are part of a family. And we get people now that have been in the class and say, the father, he's just a sperm donor. And I had to just, like on a record. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that when you guys were kind of doing the do.
Right.
It's critical that that's not something that we want to set up for our future.
Right.
There's a man and a woman that had it. That's the only way you can make that child. And he needs the nutrients from both of them. That's that wisdom, life stuff. Even if he's still in prison, he's still got life nutrients that young man needs. Otherwise, that one man is out here shooting up stuff and doing some other things. What has that got to do with wealth? Absolutely everything. Because if you don't have that and rebuild some of that stuff in our families, along with your financial.
So it's all about breaking those generational curses within
Exactly,
communities and
especially in
families.
community.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep. Even if we're not together, people need to see me and my son together. And I need to be pouring information into him. That he needs to see that I'm doing well, and I'm showing him. My dad took me to the bank, First National downtown, when I was a little kid. And there was something that was so ironic to why I'm doing this today. When we went to then they had bankers back then. We sat at this white banker's desk. She called him Mr. McGee, and she started, $20 bills, giving them $20 bills. I was astonished, like, I want to do this. I want to do this. It was huge. It had a huge influence on me, and that's what I try to sow into people right now, that, wow, my dad took me for one, and he was my father. He's the man of the house, so to speak, and over our finances, took me to a bank, and a lady called him Mister, and started giving him money. What an image that put in my mind.
Wow.
And then he had me open my own account, and he would take me, if I had any extra money, he'd take me down and put a little in the bank. All of those little
That's
things
wonderful.
that are necessary for us to
Yes.
do. We're doing that with people that are 47, that
Yes.
that are just now doing this, and
Wow.
they're getting ready.
47, huh?
55, 63. It doesn't
Wow.
matter. There's still people that are missing some of those fundamental things about finances that could be critical to the next generation. So we're getting at all of that stuff.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that, and that definitely makes your organization very unique. Because I haven't heard yet of an organization doing that type of, social holistic approach yet. Is there anything you would like to add at all, Jeffrey, on what makes Build Wealth different and unique from other organizations in Minnesota?
The only thing I wouldn't necessarily add anything different, but just elevate some of the stuff that Mr. McGee has said, because you can't really underestimate the power of lived experiences and the value that brings to the table. And because when God kicked me out the credit tree, I got sued twice. I ended up in a situation where we consider bankruptcy. I landed on a foreclosure tree with my family, and we stayed on that we stayed on that branch for more years than I care to remember. But the stress that comes from it, and being able to look people in the eye and tell them not from a space of I think I know, but a space that I know that as long as we have a plan and we are able to execute on that plan, we're going to get the results that we need and we're looking for. And on top of that, the things that you're going through, we're going through. We don't live here. We're actually going through. There's a destination. That destination has a promise that's connected to it.
Right.
But we have a path that we have to walk in order to get you there. And I can hold your hand down that path. I know what that pain feels like, to not know whether today is going to be the day that somebody knocks on your door and put all your stuff on the sidewalk. I know what it's like to sit across the table from a creditor and you don't have a dime in your bank account, but your family needs this mattress, and the only way they're going to get this mattress is that they approve you for this credit card, and you know that your credit is not where it's supposed to be. And since you've been a breadwinner in your family all of this time, how nerve-wracking it is to be across that table, wondering, hoping, praying like you ain't never prayed before, that this application gets approved and your family get the thing that you need. I know what it's like to walk inside of a mortgage banker's office and we can't get the loan because my credit is messed up. I know what that feels like. I know what that feels like from not just from a personal perspective. I know what it feels like from the perspective of a husband, from the perspective of a provider, a main provider who is not just my credit, but if you take my income out of it, we don't get what we want.
Right.
But in order for my income to come into play, I need to be at the table with my credit. And so when I think about build wealth and how we've been able to literally sow into the lives of so many others, Mr. McGee would come in and openly just say, I filed bankruptcy before.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's important to be able to empathize with your clients because, you know, they'll come in and say, oh, you don't, when they look at you and say, oh, you don't know what it's like, or, you know, because, but so that's so important to be able to meet them where they're at.
Yeah, and all of our coaches have had challenges.
Right.
And then one of the bigger things about our program is it's called Family Stabilization Plan. Everybody that comes through our program has to create a plan.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a viable plan, and it's a plan that when we put time limits on it, we do it in bite-sized chunks of 6 months. What can I do effectively in 6 months? And we go after those things. We reach them, then we start another plan. There's some people that have been in our program 11 years.
11 years?
Life happens because even though they set a plan, life happens and it just doesn't go the way you thought. Mm-hmm. So there's some restarts, some false starts, and at the end of the day, the goal is to watch the plan, and you met it. You know, our game plan is to always have rewards. You know, maybe, yes. You know, I was not a saver. I was a spender. I audited banks, made a lot of money, but I came from a place where I like to spend.
Right.
And so I never saved any money, you know, so it took me a long time to start taking bite-sized chunks. And it was the first time I reached $10,000. That was a miracle.
It's like you have to teach discipline.
Literally.
So how do you teach that discipline? Because with our community, we do spend.
Yep, but it takes some planning to
Yeah.
stop. You got to stop and you got to do something
Right.
different.
Right.
And those things that you like, even if there's chocolate chip cookies, and you're buying too many of those, it could be, I know that at one of my clients, real quick, we were trying to find a way for them to start saving money, and they were doing payday loans and everything.
Oh, those.
And I kept looking at their budget. Every time we went over their budget, there was this thing that they kept checking off as their, what they call it? It's like, this is, they wouldn't put a name on this thing that they were spending.
A high interest loan.
No, that was one of them that was causing it later, but he had a weed budget.
Oh.
There was a weed budget that he was spending $30 every 3 days.
Oh.
And at the end of the thing, the deficit that he had was the weed budget. I couldn't get in his business and say, you're going to have to stop smoking that weed. What it is, you have a goal to get here. Not only are you not going to reach the goal, it's causing you to take out a payday loan. So it was another thing it was like a domino effect. So we had to plan around that. Him and his wife just started crying, and she said, what is this thing here? I got to ask what this is the third month of this deficit. And the wife just started crying, and the husband, he's a pastor, and he said, that's my weed budget. And I'm saying, I'm not trying to talk about anybody. We don't want to get in your business. It's to get you in your business, to just recognize this is something that you're doing, and it's consistently hurting your opportunity, possibly to own a home.
Right.
And we're really, really brutally honest with we look at real bank statements. We look at everything is real, and that's something that we want people to just be honest with themselves. If we're going to do this,
Yes.
we're going
They
to
have
do
to be
this together,
prepared.
and we're going to get there.
Right.
And we've been able to be successfully to get there, over 8,000 times, which is an awesome number. I'm patting myself on the chest.
Congratulations,
Do I
guys.
need to give you another?
Yeah, give me one of those. I hit
let
myself
me
on the
give you another
chest.
applause here.
I've been
Here
able
we
to
go.
get 8,000 people into home ownership, and not to mention several of those people brought their grandmother. Some of those people brought their mother.
That's how
where
we start
we've
with
been
that
able to get
generational. That's
try,
great.
multi-generations have
Yes.
done it. When I can ride over north and different parts of the city and ride down and say, wow, I got those people, 9 different homes on a block. Not from me, but these people taking the chance and
Right.
really making some plans for their family and meeting the goals that they set. And now they got money in the bank. I got people when I walk in the hospital run up to me. Yeah, guess what? I got $8,000 in the bank. They've never had $8,000 in the bank
Oh,
ever.
that's a good.
And they were low income families when they came to our program, but they just did some different stewardship stuff that's changed their lives.
Yes. Thank you for sharing. So you mentioned the number 9, and that just made me think, what is this 9,000 Equities Initiative that you all have?
Wow, Jeff and I, and I take part of the story. You take the rest. Anyway, Jeff and I, we went through a program called Building High Impact Nonprofits of Color, and somebody was doing this out of another state, and they came here and picked like 5 nonprofits that they found were doing some really great stuff, had great outcomes. However, balance sheet and everything else didn't look like the families that were helping. Our balance sheet didn't look like that. And so we were struggling with our organization and getting the right financing and funding into our organization. So they did a makeover of every area of our organization and found out that some of our peers that are $100 million nonprofits, our numbers surpassed, I'm not going to say who they are, our numbers in terms of outcomes surpass all of those.
That's wonderful.
But the opportunity to raise funding, our funding coming in didn't match theirs at all. And we had a young lady on our financial team that was working on our finances and said, that's because you're black. That's the only reason that you haven't been able to raise the funds. Gave me a whole new way of asking for money. We are CDFI, and we were asking for money as a CDFI, and based on our net assets, we should have been getting 4 times our net assets.
Okay, for those who don't know, what's a CDFI?
Oh, I'm sorry, a Community Development Financial Institution.
Okay.
And that certification is given by the Department of Treasury. If you do great things and you handle finances well, you lend money and you do things like that. That was that certification. But we weren't able to raise the kind of funding for us to help more families.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, she turned us around and helped us to redo the way that we presented ourselves to others. Anyway, we started that way, and she asked, this whole team told us, what do you really do? All the stuff I told you, all these words I just told you, what do you really want to do?
Right.
And we said, we want to close the disparity gap. We want to help more people, and we want to expand this in other cities. That was what we wanted to do, and they started shaping how we did that. Jeff?
And there was somebody who was trying to tackle the disparity issue in home ownership down in, I believe it was Lexington, Kentucky. And
before you go there, we had been doing that since 2004 here, and still hadn't moved the dial at all.
Because the dial was going backwards.
Mm-hmm.
It went from 32 and it slipped all the way down to 25% in terms of the home ownership rate for black families. In fact, if you took the pie chart representing home ownership and renters of whites and blacks, they look almost identical,
Mm.
but for the wrong reasons. For whites, it was 75% home ownership. For blacks, it's 75% renting.
Oh,
For whites,
okay.
it's 25% home ownership. For blacks, 25% renting.
Renting.
And for blacks, it's 25% for home ownership.
Okay.
So if you take away the labels and just put them up together, they almost look identical. And so so we found out that there's a person down in Kentucky that had started an initiative, and I think it was 23,000 equities or something like that. And we was like, wow, okay, that's interesting. What would it look like if we attempted to do something like that? And so we started looking at numbers, and we looked at one number, and it's like, nah, we can do that by ourselves. But it still wasn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so we looked at another number and said, that's actually 20% might actually be too big of a number. Because what we were looking at was not the home ownership rate, but the disparity gap itself. And the disparity gap itself, to bring our home ownership rate into parity with white's home ownership rate, it was about 56,000 households. We would need 56,000 new black homeowners in order to go from 25% up to 75% home ownership rate. And we looked at that number right there and said, you know what? What if we did 15% of that gap, that 59%, that 59,000 households? And the number came at 8,900. And so there we had the birth of the number was, if let's work on getting 9,000 new black homeowners. And that number was too big for Bill Wealth to do in a 7-year period by ourselves. And that was the thing. We wanted something that actually generated, or required rather, it required partnership, and partnership around the heart. One of the things that makes Bill Wealth the 9,000 Equities Initiative was that if your heart ain't involved in this work, it can't be about a number. It can't, when I say a number, I mean a paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
It cannot be about a paycheck. It got to be, there has to be a reason why you're involved in this work other than a paycheck. Because when you're working on a paycheck, you're working for something and not working for something. You know what I'm saying? And so, and that for something for us was, we got grandparents who, or let's say this, we are realizing we are the realization of a promise that was prayed for and requested 200 years ago or more by people who knew that they would never realize the situation that we're in, a place where we can own our own stuff, a place where we can claim and choose and create our own destiny. So we're in that space right now, but unless you are vested into that part of it, a heart for this work, a passion for this work, we ain't going to get to where we're going. But that 9,000 equities, now, we were talking about this in the car or the ride over here because we were looking at the numbers. And since we started this, the number of homeowners that was created last year was around 8,600 homeowners between the time that we started it up until this time.
So tell us. So when was this?
This was, so 8,600 new homeowners were created, and so like we've been following the reports, and when we pulled the initial report from MinnesotaCompass.org in terms of the data, the number of black homeowners that were created from the time that we started it to last year was 8,600. The needle had actually moved from 25% to 32%. And when we were looking at the data again just recently, the needle went from 8,600 new black homeowners to roughly over about 12,000 new black homeowners
So
since
you
that
So
exceeded,
time frame.
we
you
exceeded
exceeded your goal.
based on what we started,
Congratulations.
and that was and you can put your applaud on there. But
Yes,
anyway,
absolutely. I'm gonna look for that now.
so where we were
Uh-huh.
going. So in 2002 is when we started this process, and we weren't trying to talk about all the other people we serve. We were being unapologetically black. We needed to close this disparity gap. I have been working on it since 2004 myself at all these different tables, and when we first started, it was 31%. And all of a sudden, in 2002, it went to 25%. It went the other way.
Mhm.
I was just, bragging about how many homeowners I got that were black and all that, but we weren't doing anything. And we have the biggest footprint for U.S. Bank, Wells Fargo. All of these major banks are here, and the gap was widening.
Oh.
And so we started this process to get 9,000, and we got 17 partners as of today. I heard that you do this too. But anyway, we're looking for partners. We wanted to get up to 31 partners, but we did 17 partners. By the time we were done with some of the stuff, not only the stuff we did ourselves, we've influenced some folks like Groundbreak and others that are trying to close the disparity gap for black folks.
Uh-huh.
In the meantime, all collectively, we already reached the 9,000.
Wonderful.
But the numbers, if you go look at Encompass and some of the numbers, it went back down again.
Uh-huh. And why is that? Is it because of?
They started putting on new data of new black people that moved to Minnesota. That data that we are working on is decade-old data that shows this disparity.
Uh-huh.
And you can't go look at data that just has, 4 years. There's 4 years. In the last 4 to 5 years, several black families have moved here. So it makes it look like there's still a major disparity gap. There is still a major disparity gap because, remember, we got to get to 100%.
Right.
And so it still needs investment. But we're on the pathway to doing some great work. To have 12,000 black families moving homes
Absolutely.
to go from, from 25 to 32, that's where it was when I started working on it in 2004. So as you can see, there's still been lack of, I don't want to say divestment, but there's been lack of investment from major banks to get into addressing this problem. Groundbreak is one of the biggest things I've seen that came with several bankers, major banks at the table.
Can you tell us a little bit more about Groundbreak?
Groundbreak is there's about 50 organizations, banks, and organizations and government agencies that have come together, and they have raised so far, I think, $4 billion.
Wow.
And they're on, which is, when you say, wow, 9,000 Equities is a $4 billion initiative. And that came from these little 17 folks. These are major banks. So that wow isn't enough.
Right.
There's going to have to be some serious investment in order to really close that disparity gap. And not just the investment, but what does that investment mean? So is education in there? Is major down payment assistance? Are there some culturally specific loan products that can help some of these programs? That's what's going to be needed. So there's still some chiseling out of stuff that they're trying to come up with, but they're off to a fairly decent start right now.
I mean, $9 billion, that's a whole lot of money.
That's a lot of, yeah, but when you look at it, 500 houses. If you were to, you're a realtor, so if you say 500 houses at $300,000 per house.
Yes. And all the other
Those billions
all the other
will,
hidden expenses that come with
those
that
those
as well.
billions will go. He's taking out his calculator, but it doesn't. $4 billion is not going to close the disparity gap. Not at this point. And I think we're already over $2.5 billion plus into this initiative, and we've only got 12,000. That are coming from different places. So it isn't just from our initiative. There's different partners that are part of this.
What's a healthy number you guys are looking for investment?
For investment, technically $4 billion is what we were looking for as a
Okay.
starting point.
Okay, like going forward though, is it?
We still need billions of dollars going forward. What we're trying to do is we were able out of this. We have our own loan pool now,
Okay.
so we can do
Great.
some culturally specific loans, first mortgages. We can do down payment assistance, forgivable down payment assistance.
Awesome.
So there's all of that. So there's a combination of that, and then the cost of having people go through the education. And everybody that comes that we are counting didn't go through every one of these different portals.
Okay.
But if we had, if we had a $5 billion loan fund that was supported by culturally specific buyers, can you imagine the number of folks that we can get into home ownership? And then we could have $30,000 to $40,000 worth of down payment assistance that didn't have to get paid back, taken out, or refinanced. They got to pay it back. Then that's not equity.
Right.
But if we can have those families get that forgivable after 5 years,
That's love.
can you imagine the equity that can move into some other areas? And so now we're starting to do this in some other communities as well. So other
Yes.
communities of color. So.
Thank you for sharing that. So we have about 10 more minutes, and I don't want to be remiss on this. I want to really ask, because you mentioned you have a waiting list, but what does it look like if someone wants to register for your program? What does it look like from the beginning to the end? You mentioned you have a youth program, and then you also have a program for adults. So if you can kind of just give us an overview of that for our listeners.
Yeah, we have the family stabilization plan. We've been doing that as a cohort model originally. Now we've actually developed since since we had that 13. What is it called? COVID. No, we actually created an online version. But typically we have with 5 times a year, like every 11 weeks, we start a new cohort of folks in there. Usually 30 to 50 families at a time. Now folks can take it online as well. That's for folks usually from 18 to 75, whatever. But then we also started, just last year, we started a youth one. We had been going into the schools and bringing it to several schools around the Twin Cities, and now we have it where we're bringing it in-house. So that starts I think we got he builds, a she builds for young men, she builds for young ladies, and we have the same program that we have for adults. We've kind of, I don't want to dummied it down, but we made it more palatable for people that are in grade school, middle school to high school. And so we're going to be doing that 4 times a year as well. And that's where our waiting list has been coming in. And Jeff is over that and the team, so I should have let you talk about
Yeah,
that.
Jeff, do you want to add anything more to our listeners about?
Yeah, we have a class, a new cohort that's going to be starting in May. And so if you're interested in joining the program, we make a firm commitment. If you take on the education, because information is knowledge, but knowledge is not profitable until you execute what you learn and put it into practice. And so we believe that with the right information, as long as you're executing on what we are teaching, then you'll never be broke again. I won't say that you won't run into hard times, because hard times happens to the best of us, but you will never be broke again. Broke being that you run into hard times and aren't able to come up with a plan on how you're going to come out of it and come out of it clean. And so we got a class that's getting ready to start up in May. If you're interested, please don't hesitate to give us a call at 612-877-4182. Again, that telephone number is 612-877-4182. And tell them you heard about it from
The house lady. But let's back up a little bit. What are the eligibility requirements and what are the commitments? I mean, do they have to, is there an attendance thing going on, or would they get kicked out? So can you tell us a little bit more before they
Yes.
call?
So there isn't an eligibility requirement in terms of you having to make a certain amount of income. You have to be in a certain kind of space, like for renting or owning. Not that. But what we do require is that everyone has a buy-in. And the buy-in is simply $168. We don't allow the buy-in to become a barrier to you participating. we can figure something out on that side of it. But everyone must have a buy-in. And the reason why is because the stuff that you get for free, you treat differently than the stuff that you pay for. And that's science and a proven fact all across the board. If I gave you a TV for free and the remote was missing a button and it was missing the back and it was held together with tape, you're going to take that TV and you might
Sounds
just,
like my remote.
right? I just described my remote. I'm
I know,
literally
I
got it in
tape.
my head.
I have tape around mine. So.
Right? But let's say you go to Best Buy or another store, retailer, and you buy a TV, and you take the TV out the box, and the remote is jacked up. I'm not taking the remote back. I'm taking the whole TV and the remote back, because if I can't trust you with the remote, how am I going to feel comfortable about this TV that I just gave you cash money for? So no. I'm taking it all the way back. And in the same vein, though, we want you holding us accountable at that level. We want you to be able to say that I went to build wealth and I got my money. I got more than my money's worth, because the 160 don't pay nobody's salary at Build Wealth Minnesota. It doesn't at all.
We want them to have some skin in the game.
Gotta have skin
and that's
in the
been
game.
working really well.
Yes.
I know there's other programs that incentivize people and pay them for lunch. And I was going to one organization and teaching. They not only paid for the lunch, they had a cab waiting for them outside, and they gave them a gift card, a Target card. And I'm like, those folks, I don't believe they appreciated that. And that's that stuff that gets us stuck on that Ferris wheel of being in this negative stuff. And we want people to pay a little bit of money and watch the results of what they get from this. And it's been working. Most of the people, when we incentivize and do stuff for free, those people don't feel obligated to finish the class.
Yes, I agree with that.
You know, and
Yes.
if you've done some classes, they're outside
absolutely,
and smoking
yes.
cigarettes and doing everything, because they're not valuing that.
I agree with that. And I was talking to one of our team members is not here, but we were talking about when we deal with the buyers that are challenging. And I said, we want them to buy, and they need to come to our office. We're not meeting them anywhere, because we need to set the tone, because this is their investment.
Yeah.
But we also were thinking about even them putting a little money down on our time.
Yeah.
Because they don't get, we don't get paid until the deal is closed. But them putting a little bit money down so their skin is in the game, and they see if it's $50 or it's $150, which will go towards closing.
Yeah.
But so
And it's illegal to pay you.
Yes.
But if they pay me,
yes.
they still want the services from you.
Right.
As if that,
Yes.
And when I tell them realtors for free, you're kidding.
Right.
And it just gives them more energy and incentive to kind of do and go.
Right.
And there's a lot of people want to join our program for the down payment assistance, and that's not guaranteed you're going to get it. And I don't want you coming here for down payment assistance.
Absolutely.
I want you to get this education and this wisdom that you're going to be able to share for generations. And trust me, we're going to fill your plate with all this stuff as you finish. We've been very successful on folks getting stuff.
Right.
Wow, you're kidding. You're kidding. I own a home. You're kidding. People, a gentleman asked me today, I had for breakfast, I said, I've been helping families that are on fixed incomes get homes. He said, you're kidding. I said, no, we've been helping them get homes. We were able to do $140,000 worth of down payment assistance for one buyer.
Wow, that's wonderful.
We're not
I'd love to get that.
guaranteeing anybody that's listening today that
Yeah,
you're going to get
yeah.
that. But there is opportunities to access that kind of money in this environment right now. I had a lady, her family really needed a house, $250,000, $300,000. She only qualified, after all of that big old car note she had, she only qualified for like $170,000 house for a family of four. As a realtor, that's going to be very difficult
Challenging right now.
to
Yes.
find a house that fits the needs of her family.
Yes.
She ended up closing on a house like $280,000, and we were able to get her like $140,000 worth of down payment assistance.
Did she have to bring any money to the closing?
No, as a matter of fact, she didn't. Only her earnest money. But at the end of the day, I think her payment was like $950. And basically she was on fixed income and
Right.
was able to qualify for that type of home.
Wow, thank you for so much. I'm up to like, wow, because it's
Yeah,
just,
that's
this is, I
beautiful.
love hearing that. Jason, do you have any, I've been talking and talking. Did you have any questions for the
Yeah,
gentleman here?
I mean, I have a couple questions here. I guess you guys had already shared some success stories, so I'm not going to ask that question. But I guess being in the industry for this long, like what keeps you going every day? Like what other than obviously like the transformation that you have in people's lives, but what gets you guys up every morning and not burning out throughout all these situations that everyone's going through? I'm sure it's heavy on you
Question,
guys,
good
right?
question.
Yeah, it is now. So I'm actually in the middle of a sabbatical because I went 22 and a half years straight doing this. But it's ministry for me, and I've been blessed with a lot of wisdom and knowledge all these years, 40 something years of being a banker and auditing banks. I started developing this curriculum so I could give this stuff back to people that don't have it readily available to them. And so that's what drives me. What really drives me is to watch them take the wisdom and use it and watch what they get. You know, the rewards they get is just rewarding to me and my family. Finding these later years, I was actually able to, reap benefits financially and economically, and I socially just I love seeing families thrive.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to end here, but I would like for you to state your name one more time and how folks can get a hold of you. And I'm going to, I have to give you one more applause.
I had to.
Yeah. So
Yep.
again, how will people that are listening get a hold of Minnesota Build
Yeah,
Wealth?
I'm David McGee, the executive director and founder. A little hard to get a hold of, but you can call us at the main number at 612-877-4182. And our website is bewealthe.org. The letter B, WEALTH, the letter E.org.
And we are centrally located in the heart of North Minneapolis on the corner of Penn and Plymouth. That's 1256 Penn Avenue North on the 4th floor, Suite 4400.
And what's one message you want listeners to walk away with today?
You right across the street from your house. Let us help show you the way.
I like that. I like that.
And I like everyone I believe should be a homeowner, no matter what your age is, but make it a home and not a house.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everybody for listening today. This is Estrella, aka the House Lady. And again, if you would like to be on my podcast, you can contact me at 651-338-4207. And if you're listening out of the state of Minnesota and want to be linked in with a Realtor, I can hook you up with my national and international referral network. So I will talk to you again, and make sure you make it your best life.